Hello, my name is SK. Thank you for joining us for this presentation on Cisco. So today we'll be discussing an overview of Cisco as a company and its history. We'll consider the structure of Cisco's operations as well as its competition. Then we will consider the Cisco's marketing mix, segmentation, positioning strategies, followed by analysis of the company and its competition through SWOT, PESTLE, and Porter's 5 analysis. Finally, we will provide actionable recommendations that Cisco should pursue to grow its strength as a dominant multinational food service distributor. Next, John will cover the company overview and history.
Hello. My name is John. Company overview. Cisco is the largest food distributor in the United States with approximately 16% of the industry's total market share. The company has a considerable footprint in international markets as well, in places like Mexico, the Bahamas, Ireland, the UK, France, and Belgium. Cisco supplies food, kitchenwares, and other equipment and supplies that food service companies need for their operations. It does so through 4 strategic business units and many smaller international operating divisions. Cisco was founded in 1969 by John Baugh as a combination of 9 different small food distribution companies. Baugh had been based in Houston, Texas, a central distribution hub for the United States, and he wanted to create a nationwide company. His goal was to provide service on a national level that could distribute foods, even if they were regionally sourced. The combined company found success in its initial year of operations, earning a combined sales of $115 million in 1969. Cisco, which is an acronym for Systems and Services Company, has grown concurrently with the growth of the consumer interest towards dining out. Yet their growth has also been tied to a clear acquisition strategy. By 1990, the company had made 43 acquisitions. By 2004, the number of acquisitions had reached 121. As Cisco expanded, John Baugh took special care to acquire distributors that were in ideal geographical locations. His focus was on providing uniform service across the country, and he led efforts to build many warehouses and distribution centers to support the expansions. During the 1970s, Cisco continued to expand, entering further into the fish, frozen, and fresh food markets. Sales surpassed $1 billion in 1976, and in 1981, Cisco had become the largest food distributor in the United States. The company continued expansion through acquisitions in the 1980s with the purchase from Sara Lee in 1984 and from CFS Continental in 1988. In 1980, sales had topped $6.8 billion, and at that point, McDonald's was the only company in the entire food service industry that was larger than Cisco, where Cisco was the largest company in the food service distribution industry. In 1991, Cisco created Sigma as a subsidiary, which focused on fortifying the company's transportation network. And in 1995, Baugh stepped down from the CEO position, though he remained involved as a senior chairman. Like many other conglomerates and large-scale firms, managing the company became challenging after the departure of its founding CEO. At that point, Cisco headquarters was receiving direct reports from a total of 58 operating companies, with plans for 75 operating companies in upcoming years. To organize the cacophony, multiple senior vice president positions were created to split the company needs up more effectively. Traditional acquisitions slowed in the 1990s when management began pursuing a fold-out strategy in distant markets. The 2000s saw a return to American acquisitions with companies purchased in 2000, 2001, 2002, and 2004. In 2013, Cisco announced plans to acquire US Foods for a total of $3.5 billion, but the merger was terminated in 2015 due to federal antitrust concerns. Had the acquisition been carried out, Cisco would have controlled 75% of the food distribution market. Situation analysis. Cisco's operation is divided into 4 strategic business units. The primary unit is called Broadline Co-ops, which focuses on generic food distribution and logistics. The other units are Specialty, focused on specialty foods and food service wares, International, the global division, and Sigma, Cisco's subsidiary delivery network. In terms of industry and market positioning, Cisco exists across many regional and international markets. The company has 57,000 associates based out of 326 distribution facilities worldwide, serving over 625,000 customer locations. At the end of 2019, Sysco's operations served approximately 16% of the annual food service market in the United States. The market had a value of $310 billion. Sysco has two other main competitors in the United States that are also large food service distributors. They're US Foods Corporation and Performance Food Holdings. In comparison to Sysco's size of more than 600,000 customers, US Foods Corporation maintains approximately 300,000 customers, and Performance Food Group maintains approximately 200,000. Next, Tommy will be discussing the marketing mix.
Thank you, John. So the next part we're going to talk about is the marketing mix. So we're going to start off with the product. So Sysco has marketed itself to be a company, that primarily focuses on serving other businesses, a B2B fashion type of business. To to be frank, and their main customer segments consist of serving businesses in the restaurant, government, healthcare, travel, and retail industries. And their main products usually include meat, fresh produce, beverages, etc. Um, and Sysco also focuses on providing ancillary services relating to food service. And these food services include product usage data, food safety training, menu planning advice, and more. Um, Next, we're going to talk about the price. Well, they try to offer what they call competitive pricing within the food service distribution industry. The company regularly monitors customer accounts and assesses them to check credit worthiness to make sure they are getting the right customers, which may be suspended if it is necessary. The company also tries to optimize its overall costs by lowering their own operating costs and aggregate inventory levels. This helps the company offer a competitive price point for its customers, as stated before. And the company tries its best to fulfill its sale orders within 24 hours of when the customer places it. Not only that, but there are certain food costs, however, they fluctuate over time just because either the demand for a certain food can be high or the supply of a certain food can be short. Um, the company also describes how unique the food service distribution industry is, just because there's very few companies. And it's characterized by a high inventory turnover and low profit margins. So although they're getting a lot of revenue, their profit may not be so much. And Also, the company also adds a fee for its fuel surcharges, which we will discuss later on. And the diesel fuel is considered the most volatile part of their pricing due to the sheer elasticity of the fuel costs. Next, we'll be covering the place. And Cisco's distribution facilities are primarily located in the Americas and Europe. They provide services in the US, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Panama. And in Europe, they provide services in the UK, France, Ireland, and Sweden. These distribution centers, they're also called operating companies, as mentioned before. They help distribute the branded merchandise and products that are packaged under the private brands. And there's also a quality assurance team in each operating company that enforces the quality control standards before release. And Cisco also sources its supplies through many private companies. Many of these suppliers include large corporations selling brand name and private label products, and regional and private label processors. Locally sourced products, they do help differentiate the customer offerings and demands for new products. And not only that, they also purchase some of their products internationally within global procurement centers. And lastly, we'll be covering the promotion. Well, Cisco tries to promote their company through various means. So sponsorships is one of them. So they would, if you see like in some of the sports events or some public events, you would see the name Cisco. And that's kind of how they get their name out there for people to recognize. They also have partnerships with the media. So for example, television, commercials, internet ads, and advertisements. That's how they get their product out to people that watch TV. And lately they've been trending towards social media. So they have many accounts such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. They also established a YouTube channel where they kind of showcase what they're doing on a timely basis, and to announce anything in the general public as well. And in their social media, they try to gain publicity through multiple means. So like challenges, like which is, for example, they did a month-long social media campaign called Take Out to Give Back, where customers would purchase their food from restaurants, and then they would put a hashtag, and then in exchange, Sysco would give donations towards people that were struggling in communities. And next, I will be discussing Sysco segmentation methods. So Sysco segments its customers based on two primary variables. First is the type of business run by each customer and their geographic location. In terms of their customer business type, Sysco serves many. By far, the largest customer segment is restaurants, which have made up about 62% of customer sales in the last 3 years. In addition to the restaurant segment, there's also healthcare, education, government, travel, leisure. They comprise approximately 8% of the company's sales. And next is geographic segmentation. So Sysco divides its customers based on geographic location because businesses are supported in all locations by similar facilities, vehicles, and techniques. This method of segmentation also works because the product needs of food service establishments are very similar across the industry. For example, all food service establishments, they need forks, napkins, paper towels, dishwashing detergent, and etc. Such similarities can make segmentation based on other variables too ambiguous. Another reason why Sysco chooses geographic segmentation is that food service supplies are highly commoditized. Sysco provides value to customers through a focus on delivery speed, delivery consistency, and the ability to change orders quickly with little notice, rather than through differentiation. To keep this focus in mind, geographic segmentation is employed to make sure that all customers are always close enough to a distribution center. And next, we will be moving on to company and product positioning. So under the BCG matrix, Sysco falls easily into the star category. The typical market positioning of a star involves high market share and high market growth. Sysco has maintained one of the largest shares of the food service distribution market, conducting between 15.9% and 16.8% of the company's total business in the US every year since 2012. 16% may not seem like a large proportion to some people, but servicing 16% of all restaurants across the United States is, in fact, quite notable. It should also be recognized that Sysco is experiencing high market growth, excluding 2020 as an exception due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The size of Sysco's operations has been expanding significantly for the past several years. And their net earnings, they totaled about 1.1 billion in 2017, 1.4 billion in 2018, 1.7 billion in 2019. Although Sysco's market share has not increased significantly over the last several years, the size of the company's operations have increased. In terms of product positioning, Sysco strives to position itself as a B2B provider that can supply a full array of products and services promptly and accurately. The wide geographic scope of Sysco's operations also play a role because the company can be found in nearly every major city in the US. Restaurant owners looking to expand regionally point to Sysco's nationwide coverage as a key reason for the company's appeal. Many restaurants with plans for nationwide expansion have initiated business with Sysco due to this wide scope. Switching costs in the food distribution industry are very high, and Sysco's ability to attract business from nationally growing restaurants comes from its competitive advantage in large-scale food service supply. Sysco considers prompt service and wide reach across many regions critical factors to the positioning of its products and services because it allows the company to serve customers nationwide on a regular basis, but also because it allows the company to fulfill bespoke solutions for clients on short notice as well. And next, Kaina will move on to the SWOT analysis.
Thank you, Tommy. Sysco's current strengths are characterized by its automation process, distribution center, and social media presence, and brand recognition. The company's automation process has helped it provide a quick way to deliver items more efficiently and consistently. Another main feature for Sysco is the distribution advantage. Sysco has distribution centers located in every state in the United States, allowing the company to distribute large quantities of their products to many customers on time. Cisco also engages in social media to keep up with rising trends and current events alongside its customers. In addition to social media, Cisco has earned general brand recognition due to the equity of its delivery trucks, labeled clearly with Cisco's logo. The trucks are visible in many cities in which the firm operates, and the clear logo allows everyday consumers to recall the brand, even if they are far from the food service industry. Three weaknesses that stand out at Cisco are high employee turnover, complications with rented properties, and slow inventory turnover. The high employee turnover is because of employees departing the company too quickly, which in turn forces a large expenditure on training and learning programs for new hires. The company also has to deal with rental properties. The rented nature of Cisco facilities result in higher costs than if the properties were owned outright. Finally, the company has weakness through its low inventory turnover. Cisco maintains a larger inventory compared to its competitions, which causes additional storage costs that build over time. Some opportunities that Cisco can pursue to find new advantages include expanding its presence on social media, introducing new technologies into the operations, and engaging in green government drive. Cisco already established itself on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and can continue to utilize these platforms to connect with the customers. Another opportunity that Cisco can pursue is the use of technological advancements. By continuously adapting new technology to the firm's operation processes, the company can gather better data on and for the customers, improve marketing efforts, and reduce costs through automation. Also, Cisco can consider the government green drive, a government trade agreement in which allow the company to sell its products to federal and state government contractors. Some of the threats that Cisco faces with the industry include its existing competition, new entrants into the market, and the possibility of additional government regulations for the company. An additional competition has forced Cisco to decrease some of its prices to stay ahead. Cisco also faces threats from new entrants into the industry. As the threat of new entrants grow, market shares can be lost as well as revenue and profits. Finally, there is the threat of additional government regulations. Cisco is already a quasi-oligopolist position due to its market's penetration and strength, and the federal government has considered itself with Cisco's expansion before. It may be inclined to weigh in again in the future. Next, I will be covering pestle analysis. For political, Cisco works closely with food industry participants, suppliers, and stakeholders to ensure it's advocating for issues on local, state, and federal levels. The corporation monitors legislative and regulatory actions that can affect any of its partners, increases awareness of Cisco's business operation with stakeholders, and expand understanding of the company and its view on the eyes of the policymakers. One political factor that can affect Cisco are laws that restrict corporation contributions to political candidates that bias them towards helping Cisco unethically. Other factors that affect Cisco at both the US and international levels are trade regulation, taxation, price regulation, corruption levels, and workweek regulations in the food industry. Economic. Many economic factors can affect a business as large as Cisco. Some of these factors include a foreign exchange rate, savings rate, interest rate, and inflation. Another factor is education level and specific economies that impact potential hires to the company, as well as political business partners in which Cisco must work. Social, perhaps the strongest contributing social factor for Cisco is the demographics of a political population in geographic regions where the firm does business. Demographics are crucial for the company to understand when deciding on expanding into a new city. Cisco must understand the age ranges of potential customers and employees, as well as the types of restaurant interested in doing business. Another important social factor Cisco must consider is regional culture. Different countries around the world interact very differently according to what kind of cultural standards exist. For example, if Cisco were opening up a distribution center in Saudi Arabia, behavior and operations would vary significantly compared to operations at a Toronto distribution center. Technological. Cisco is primarily a logistic company, therefore it must keep up with technological advancements to maintain competitive advantage. Technological upgrades have a heavy impact on how efficiently a logistic company can operate in methods such as communication, shipment, tracking softwares, and vehicular upgrades. As zero emission vehicles become more mainstream, Cisco also needs to understand electrical vans and trucks and understand their place in the food service distribution supply chain. Environmental factors that mainly affect Cisco's physical operations when placing and creating distribution centers. Cisco must honor environmental regulations on population and other detrimental activities. In addition to regulations, Cisco must consider various climates and weather conditions, and inclement weather events can have a measurable effect on the speed of service. Legal, just like any other company, Cisco must abide by all laws and regulations, legal regulations. Some of the laws that Cisco must understand include copyright laws, antitrust laws for industry, and employment laws. Employment laws can vary dramatically across the states and countries when it comes to the rights and benefits that employees have. Another category of law Cisco must consider is health and safety laws in which dictate things like food handling. Next, Kalen will cover Porter's 5 forces.
All right. Thank you, Kaina. I'll start it off by talking about Porter's 5 forces. One, Cisco's threat of new entrants is low. Cisco doesn't face a serious threat of new entry because of its well-established customer relationship with restaurants and hospitals. As of 2017, Cisco enjoyed a 16% market share and a 2 to 3% cost advantage compared to new incomers. Second, Cisco's threat of substitute is moderate. The two main competitors that Cisco faces are US Foods and Performance Food Groups. In markets where more than one of these three firms operates, customers can change suppliers without significant switching costs due to the commoditized nature of the products. This is why Cisco focuses on prompt delivery times, accurate contents within delivery, and flexibility to change orders or make one-time custom orders without much notice. 3, the bargaining power of Cisco's buyers is high. Buyer bargaining power comes from the ability of customers to elect to do business with of a large number of companies that are engaged in the food service distribution industry. 4th, the bargaining power of Cisco's substitute is low. Competition that can easily act as substitutes has low levels of bargaining power with Cisco's current clients because Cisco serves its customers on a timely and dependable basis and with competitive prices. 5, Cisco's competitive rivalry is high. Cisco faces high levels of competition from other distributors and other types of businesses. The company reports that each local and regional market competition is present from wholesale and retail outlets, clubs, cash, and carry and grocery stores and online retailers. Additionally, Cisco faces competition from several multi-regional food distribution firms like US Foods and Performance Food Groups. This competitive rivalry is elevated from the fact that many of the products available from the food distributors are commodities. They can be replaced or substituted with alternatives that are essentially the same. The result is that Cisco cannot compete solely based on differentiation or low price. To stay ahead of the competition, Cisco must instead utilize the competitive advantages such as its sales consultants, its diversified product base, which includes quality insured Cisco brands products. The suite of services is to provide its customers and its multi-regional presence in North America and Europe. Together, these competitive advantages allow Cisco to maintain a value proposition that is enticing enough to retain its customers. Next, I'll be discussing the recommendations. One recommendation we came up with was to open a mini distribution center for regions that aren't serviced by existing distribution centers. Sysco is already the largest food service provider in the United States, as such as a few possibilities of rapid expansion into major untapped markets. Yet, despite the lack of new major markets to enter, there remains the possibility of finding smaller markets in which to serve. The recommendation for Sysco is to expand into some of these markets by opening smaller mini distribution centers. Sysco may not find economic sense in expansion into the most rural markets, yet many mid-sized cities that have sufficient restaurants and food service operations to support a distribution center that is smaller in scope. Though the number of products would be limited in comparison to full-size distribution centers, mini distribution centers would still have a vast enough assortment to provide quality service in those markets. Other benefits would include lower operation costs than full-size distribution centers, and the opening of a mini distribution center would provide several hundred jobs in each of these markets. We posit that the ideal locations of Sysco mini distribution centers include cities that both A, do not currently have a Sysco presence, and B, those that have at least 100,000 residents. A list of some of the US cities that will fulfill these two categories include in table 2 on the slide. Next, recommendation 2. Recommendation 2 is to embrace electric vehicles and add them to the Sysco delivery fleet. According to the Sysco's 2020 annual report, volatile gas prices have always had a serious and direct impact on operations. Sysco is essentially a delivery service. It requires a significant quantity of fuel to function, the cost of which can fluctuate dramatically based on the international and local gas prices. Sysco passes those additional costs forward to its customers by raising fees for its service. The second recommendation of embracing alternative fuel and adding electric vehicles to the fleet is a direct response to the volatile fuel dilemma. With a larger proportion of electric vehicles included in Sysco's fleet, customers will pay less additional fuel charges, maintenance and operating costs will be lowered, and the lifespan of each truck will increase by an average of 2 years. These improvements will have a positive impact on pricing and the cost for the company, which in turn will create higher customer satisfaction amongst current and future customers. This recommendation also complements Sysco's social responsibility goals of reducing the transportation's fleet's carbon footprint by 2025. While Sysco's emission goals are not in a nascent stage, the initial step has already taken place. Further, as economies gradually shift towards electric vehicles and sources of cleaner power, governments will impose increasingly stringent restrictions on vehicles and companies that are heavily polluters. Electric vehicles continue to grow in importance and will eventually become the standard. By investing heavily in the electric vehicles for its delivery fleet, Sysco can position itself advantageously as the shift occurs. Simultaneously, it will reduce the cost and additional fees for consumers. Next, John will be covering recommendation 3.
Thank you, Kalen. Okay, recommendation 3 is for Sysco to utilize its existing infrastructure to expand into the complementary industry of linen services. After the federal government's protestations to Sysco acquiring its major competitor, US Foods, it's clear that additional strategies beyond expansion through acquisition are necessary. Expanding into complementary services is one such strategy. Additionally, Sysco has a robust logistics and transportation infrastructure engaged in operations every day. These tools can be utilized in additional ways to their original purposes, such as expansion into the linen services. Linen services industry focuses on laundering items like uniforms, table linens, and mops to food service establishments, as well as bed linens and other supplies to non-food related industries. Linen services have a US market size of $14 billion per year, yet the industry is only maintained by 3,073 businesses. Sysco has an opportunity to penetrate this market because its existing customers already require linen services. Additionally, the linen services industry has seen growth in recent years. In 2017, median sales for the linen services industry grew by 4%, a significantly higher increase than the 2.2% of US GDP growth for the same year. By initiating a linen service, Sysco will create an additional revenue stream that can be expected to expand each year. To execute a linen services strategy, Sysco will follow specific steps. Step 1, market selection. First, management must select 5 geographic markets to launch the initiative. The lead distribution center in each selected region will be outfitted with 2 industrial washing machines and 2 industrial dryers. Each machine costs approximately $15,000. Outfitting distribution centers in 5 markets with 2 washers and 2 dryers each will cost a total of $150,000 in initial costs. Step 2, initial launch. Once the machines are installed and operational, existing customers will be informed about the program and will be offered to bundle the service with their existing orders. 2 clean linen carts can fit into existing truckloads without the need for additional deliveries. If customers indicate interest in larger capacities, Sysco vans outfitted for linen service can deliver additional linen carts alongside the truck orders. The use of additional vans will incur a charge on the part of the client. Step 3, expanded launch. The expanded launch will have 2 components. First, distribution centers in markets adjacent to those that already offer linen service will be equipped with 2 industrial washers and 2 industrial dryers in a similar format to the initial launch. Second, additional pairs of machines will be purchased and installed into distribution centers in markets where demand for linen services grows sufficiently. The combination of both components will allow the growth of Sysco's linen services division to occur as effectively as possible. Step 4, post-analysis. To assure that initiating linen services remains a profitable endeavor, Sysco distribution centers that offer the service will be monitored on a 6-month scale over 3 years. Any distribution center that does not yield a net profit from its linen services for at least 2 of the 6 periods will have the service shut down. Industrial washers and dryers at these locations will either be moved to distribution centers that continue to offer linen services or will be sold onto the industrial goods, used goods market. Next, SK will be concluding the presentation.
Thank you, John. In conclusion, Cisco's operations have exploded globally since its founding in 1969. Through acquisitions and expansions into multiple continents, Cisco has shown that it can differentiate itself on the basis of delivery speed, consistency, and detail. The company maintains a respectable 16% market share in the United States and can be found in most major cities. It provides a diverse set of standard products alongside regional offerings and specialty items, all 3 of which increase its value proposition. Cisco's distribution skills and its ability to scale services as demand necessitates allows it to achieve consistently profitable revenue streams across its operations. The company faces issues in employee and inventory turnovers and in increasing competition. And there's various recommendations for Cisco to improve its standing within the industry. The first involves further expansion by opening more distribution centers across the US. The second recommendation for Cisco is to engage in alternative fuel and electric-powered transportation options to help minimize costs. The last recommendation is to enter the linen services industry by utilizing the company's existing operations and infrastructure. By pursuing one or several of the outlined recommendations, Cisco has an opportunity to grow its capabilities and reach into new markets with room for growth. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.